the
And this is what
vulnerable,
it feels like.
all powerful,
Talk on it.
and the most gangster thing you can do is serve.
Is what?
Is serve.
Say it one more time.
The most gangster thing you can do is serve. This is all the
Oh
way
my
live.
goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We doing it big. We're doing it big.
Are we live?
I believe we're totally live. What up? What up? Yo, before we even go anywhere, Mr. Miles Xavier, you know exactly what we do over here. We don't waste no time with it because every week, you know exactly what we do. We give the people exactly what they want.
I know what it is. Let them know one time.
It's not the
I'm
Way Live
so
podcast, baby.
ready. Let them know. It's give them the C's. I'm ready for the C's.
All right, for sure, for sure. You know what it is. It's that carefully curated content for your cranium every single week. We think on it, we live about it, and then we bring it to you. Just two brothers, two black men traversing this earth, and then on this day, intentfully provide peace, a space of positivity, because we know people are going through it. We
Yeah,
know
man.
it.
Yeah, man. We know it. Shout out to you, wherever you at. It's been a rough week. Guess what? You made it. You know what I'm saying? You here.
Mhm.
Chestnut, hazelnut, we feel for you. We here for you. All the way live. You're a part of a community. And it's been amazing to watch this community grow. It's been amazing to be a part of it. It's been amazing to share our lives with y'all. You know what I mean? It's been amazing to see people dig the recommended and review segments as they've been going out, man. I'm just so grateful. Can't go anywhere in the show without saying that, man. Tell them what they're gonna get.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, you know how we do it, man. We have three segments on this show. We got that stumble upon. This is where me and Miles break down things, thoughts, and topics that we have gone through this week. And this particular episode today is going to be particularly interesting. I'm gonna do my best Ti impersonation. You ready for it?
I'm ready. Hit them.
The particular content of today's topics are thoughtfully those that accurately represent the things that we go through expeditiously.
Expeditiously. The represent, the southern accent on the represent, and the expeditiously sold me. You sold me.
Anyways, man, we're speaking on the looting that was happening in South Africa. And if you follow this podcast, you know that this is not something that not only that we called happening many podcasts ago, but this is something that is familiar and dear to our heart because Miles, you were part of the riots in the U.S. Not part of the riots. Let me not say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to get my cool face on to just calmly walk that one back just a little bit. But it was very it was difficult to have to be here, right, in the States. Not that we don't have our own issues going on in Chicago summertime, right? But to be here after seeing such a familiar sight. So in South Africa, there have been riots after Jacob Zuma's deaths, and rather than riots, I would rather even say uprisings. Right? There has been people who have gone taken to the streets to express their dissent with what's going on in the government through smashing buildings, through burning businesses, through taking material goods out of those businesses, and so to see that after what we saw this previous summer after the deaths, the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, when peaceful protest was also overlapped with people rioting, looting, and breaking down businesses and destroying property, right? Which I'm not always against as a form of protest, but to have been able to see the community come together in that space to clean up, to support the businesses that are Black owned, that are community owned. It was tough to be seeing that happen again in South Africa and to be so far and to not be able to participate in the efforts to heal in the same way.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. And it actually reminds me of what you like to say about the lifting up of the love of black and brown people through and through, right? And I think even now is more important to say that prayer of ours to open up this podcast because it rings so true. But before we even get there, it's important we let the people know that the third part of this show that we do is called
Rec and review.
the show.
That right there is where we interact with you. You know what I mean? And we love that because we recommend what we think is cool. And this week we getting into another album that's really important, I think, in the culture, man. Pop Smoke Faith, his second posthumous album, right? And so we're going to get into that, what that means for the culture, what it means that he's gone. Because like spoiler alert, I really liked it, and I liked it more than I expected to, and it made me even feel more disappointed that we lost one. So we're gonna have to balance a little bit of the heavy with the levity in this one. And the way that we do that is always by acknowledging our strengths, right? Well, this is a strengths focused podcast. It's also a podcast that what's going on is recorded on stolen land, man. Johannesburg is in the building. Chicago is in the building. You know what I'm saying? And in Chicago, this land was cared for by the Potawatomi people, and the violence that is done to them is inseparable to the violence that we see in this city, to the violence that we see in this country, to the violence that we see in the world, right? So we always have to acknowledge that history, acknowledge where we've been, in order to not only not repeat it, but to know how to combat injustice when we see it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we attempt to do verbally, with verbal virtuosity. Shout out to my man Michael Eric Dyson, you know what I mean, on the podcast. And yeah, man. So we lift up love between Black and brown people the world over, more so than ever. We lift
Yes,
up,
sir.
yeah. We lift up just love in general more than ever, healing in general more than ever. Intro over. Let's get into the show, man.
Hey, man. Yo, there's the world. It feels like the world is going crazy. It feels like the world is going crazy. I don't know if you feel that too, but there's a particularly peculiar feeling about how things are right now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I would say that coming out of the pandemic, there's pent up emotion of all kinds. There's a pent up want to party. There's people that have been going through it, in the space that they were quarantined in and are now trying to adjust to, going back out more, returning to the office, returning to school, returning to in-person interactions. We can't ignore like that this is something that the past 2 years, the past 18 months has been something that none of us were prepared for, and that all of
Yeah.
us have been adapting to on the fly. And yet our society, I think the world over, kind of has this weird expectation that in public it's always supposed to be all good no matter what's going on, right? So like I feel very just grateful to be in a space where, at least in most of my work, we did at least check in before Zoom calls, like, yo, how are you doing? And there's space to respond
That's
to that.
dope.
There's space to respond to that with like, I'm not good. And that won't be met with like, you know, awkwardness or like shoved off to the side. Like we make space for that because a lot of what I do is focused around restorative justice. But I feel a lot of us feel a lot of different pent up emotions, man, and that's being expressed in different ways. That's being expressed in reactions to what's seen as injustice. That's being expressed
Mhm.
in people's use of drugs, right? It's being expressed in just community violence here in Chicago during the summer. There's a lot of things that are
Yeah,
going on, right? And I think it's all just expressions of these emotions that we've been forced to bottle up uh, and act like
it's real.
everything's all good when it's definitely not.
Nah, it's definitely not. B. It's definitely not. And what I enjoy about our particular friendship is that a lot of things that I go through are a lot of things that you go through, and that could be by virtue of we have similar passions, we share podcasts or whatever the case is. But I've found a lot of comfort come the time for when the unrest started to happen in South Africa, right? And if I have to be specific about it and and break it down what it is, right, is that following the imprisonment, the former not imprisonment, he handed himself over for to jail, right? So him going to prison. I like how I said imprisonment and then said not imprisonment, walked it all the way back, and just What if?
This episode is called
But
Tightrope, ladies and gentlemen.
no, but there's no true tightrope. So he hands himself over to jail. Following that, there are some protests that occur. After those protests, what we then started to see was a almost a mob mentality, a window for criminality is what it was, right? When it started to happen, I spoke to you and you're like, so how's the protest? I was like, bro, there's no protest happening right here. There's no placard, there's no organization, there's no community, you gotta at least be in a WhatsApp group to form a you form protests. That's your whole job.
It's not my whole job, but helping to put together and support protests has been a part of what I did for work in response to like the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor murders. I think that the lack of organization, we have to acknowledge the structural perspective that leaves us there, right? So even if in the face of what people are perceiving as injustice, there's no organization around it, like we can still understand that breaking down people's businesses is wrong, that stealing from those businesses is wrong, if there's not a coherent political motivation behind it, but also acknowledge that maybe a lot of these people are feeling something that's very true politically, feeling injustice politically, but not wanting to, but don't have that structure in place, right? Don't have those same hubs to get together, to print and put together picket signs, to educate people about how to protest in a way that is, effective, right? And so I'm not at all
100%.
trying to take a side, but I'm just wanting to acknowledge that when all we see is rioting and looting, that is the voice of oppressed people that have no other way to voice their grievances. And whether they're right or wrong, we need to find a platform and find a way to hear them out and channel that energy into discussion, even if we have to, have a serious rebuttal to whatever they're presenting, or if we need to accept it with more open ears than we have before.
I get that. And you're totally right. But it is hard to get past the anger of who did it, of who did this, of who was doing the looting, why they did it, and how bad it was, bro. I need to tell you, it was terrible what these people did. It is terrible, and it's mostly young Black men. That's the majority statistics. Average age of the people that were looting is 22, is what they were saying, right? At least the ones that were caught. So let's look at the statistics, and we've been saying this all the time. There's a lot of depression in the hood. There's a lot of drug addiction in the hood. There's a lot of unemployment in the hood, and there's a lot of depression. If I haven't said that, niggas is. Sorry, Mama Gila, but it's real. Like niggas is really depressed in the hood. That's a fact.
Yeah,
that's a fact for a multitude of reasons. For a multitude of reasons, right? That concoction with this window of opportunity led to mass looting. They were burning buildings. They were just storming, and it was just a mass swarm. But you saw the images. I can't imagine what those images look like not as a South African, but this is something that affected people that are close to me. This is something that affected my family, people I care about. It's such a visceral reaction to. And this is the analogy that I used, and I said this to you, and I called you and I told you about this. I said, if how much people took, and if the destruction is an indication of what people have, then people have absolutely nothing. The destruction mirrors how desperate the people are, how desperate the looters are.
Right. And I think that it's really hard, right? To me, well, I want to first say, to the point about what it looked like to me to see that. I want to first say that it did remind me immediately of what I saw here this previous summer, right? And so I want to dispel immediately any narratives that, like, you know, I've been hearing a lot going around that American citizens look at a lot of what's going on all over the world, whether it's what's happening in Cuba, what's happening in South
Mm,
Africa, right? As wow,
Germany.
look at those countries, kind of behaving in the tumultuous manner they're supposed to. And whenever stuff like that happens here in the US, there's this comparison of like, oh, we look like them now, as if that is uncharacteristic of our culture: violence, disorder, unrest. I recognize that not only as universal, but as something that's deeply entrenched in the country where I live, right? And so
Mm,
I think that, and my connection to you and our family in South Africa, right? Like, made it incredibly easy for my empathy to go all the way, seeing that,
mm,
right? And understanding that, like, the people I feel the most for are the people that are of and in the community that own businesses that lost their livelihoods, that lost loved ones. You know what I mean? And how can we make sure that this never happens again? And I think, just as we've had many conversations on this podcast about what we do in this country, in the United States, with the people that we fear the most, I think it's always about understanding how did we create that frustration, right?
yeah.
As a country, as a nation, how did these systems, right? Not even we, how did the government, how did our history create this frustration and this lack of outlets of productivity for, you're saying the average age of the people that were rioting and looting is 22. We have, to me, that means we have so many able-bodied young men, right? Able, not even able-bodied, able-minded,
Mm,
right? Full humans, full stop
mm,
young men, right? And so how can we understand and change the circumstances that have put them in the position where this is what they feel is right, what this is what they feel
yeah.
is necessary?
Mm. That's and then we start to encroach on the real underlying issues of the things we've been witnessing, right? And when I say we, I just say the people that are in the communities and doing the work in the community, right? And the only reason I highlight that is not to be a separatist, but to I think that is the unique observation and lens that we interpret these things through. We're not watching these things unfold as outsiders. It is from being within the community, following the looting. We organized with the foundation. We wanted to get food to the kids. We understood that there's destruction, and we set up a cleaning activities and things like that. We went into the community. We sat, we listened, we walked around. We saw where it was. We spoke to the people. They were devastated. People shell shocked almost. Listening to my aunt talk about how it was, she had, my aunts were in the house being surrounded by thousands of people, just my younger cousin and my uncle just protecting. Listen to him talk about, he said, I wish there was a camera so you could see. So fortunately for that particular store and those particular family members, they did not get into there. And I think that's a testimony to whatever higher being that everybody believes in. And I also think just good character, right? And if you're like myself, I think there's ancestral powers that assisted in that. Just, that's my grandfather's store, whatever the case. But he was saying there was a sea of angry people just unleashing an evil, is what he said.
Hmm. Hmm.
Unleashing an evil. My aunt says she has trust issues because the people that she laughs with and sees every day are the people that were trying to destroy her livelihood.
Hmm.
And it happened everywhere. When finished, they burned.
Yeah,
You know? Yeah.
that's that's harrowing to hear, bro. That's like really like heartbreaking, bro. Like, and I think the uniqueness of perspective that you were talking about, I think, comes from being in the community, being close enough to hear those stories, not necessarily by seeking them out, but by caring for the people that are in your circle, and also having a means, a mechanism of doing something and of support, right? And
Mm,
I think the difficult thing about marrying those two things in a productive way is always understanding the root causes, like as we spoke to before, and these what's happening on the surface, right? So when people are rioting and looting, we have to address that. We have to make people whole again. We have to make people feel safe at their home again, right? We have to acknowledge that pain and try and reconcile that. I don't want to detract from it by continuing to compare it to Chicago, but in the same way, older
yeah,
folks that have lived in
please
these
do.
neighborhoods, yeah, thank you. Older folks that have lived in these neighborhoods starting to feel animosity and starting to feel scared of the younger kids in the neighborhoods that they don't know, right? And not wanting to go out or wait for the bus when they know there's, these kids from their neighborhood that are gathered in that space. And how can we dispel all that? How can we remind them that we are all the same in this community, right? And it's these circumstances that have put all of us in this space at odds with each other. And how can we do that and acknowledge that history and acknowledge those root causes and still bring justice, right? And still make people feel like that the people who are harmed in this are being prioritized and being cared for
Mm,
and being made whole first, or made whole in earnest, made whole thoroughly, right? In a way that is
yeah.
restorative for the entire community.
Yeah, but much like you made the comparison, because after the protest that followed George the protest that followed George Floyd, spoke about how unfortunate it is that the people that we're destroying our own communities. That we're attacking black businesses, and we're destroying the livelihood of the people that employ people in that community. We spoke about that, and also just the legacy of neglect that has allowed this pot of of a circumstance to happen. But what I do want to dispel is that I don't believe that not that I don't believe this is not fully politically motivated, in the sense that the people that were doing it did not have a political agenda. It was a political intent, or a political outcome that they wanted to see happen. It was criminally There was criminal intent behind it. I mean, over 174 people died over this last week within that. You know what I mean? So the issues that allowed for it to become this way, then we start speaking about the government's role, and the historical theft of this is exactly what happens when you loot from a country for years. Forget the looting that these guys did. Forget the looting that they did this week, right? Because that's like 1 billion. The valuation of that is R1 billion, which is 100 and something million. They 5 times, like 500 billion rand is what they stole from our power company. That's why every time we record the podcast, there's times where it's like, oh man, power cuts are coming. That's direct result of them looting,
Yeah.
right? So in our effort, and that's the hypocritical part about this, and my only reason for not indulging in governments is because I don't fully believe in their capacity to be able to carry out on anything that they say that they'll do. I haven't seen that happen in my lifetime. I've seen a prevalence of theft,
Mhm.
right? It is not good that what happened this week happened. However, it is a direct reflection of what the government has been doing.
Yeah.
It's a direct reflection of it, right? And so, like you say, let's bring to the forefront the underlying causes of all of this as part of our healing process to go on, and let's see what's actually causing this. The government is responsible for this. If there's anyone that should be held accountable, it's the government. And that's what I stand on. It's a difficult time, but at the end of the day, love won, man. It's important to say that. Much like what happened with you, is that we got there 2 days after it like ended, and people were cleaning up. There was hope. There was people banding together. I saw, in a way that I haven't seen, so many different organizations and just groups of people texting each other and WhatsApp stories like, yo, let's get together and help clean. Man, that is that is so beautiful. And that's the hope that I carry, in that, there is space for better, because clearly here we are standing, cleaning, and hashtag rebuild SA. So I believe in that, but we can't do it while all if America's Uncle Sam, what do we call the South African one?
You got to come up with that one, man. That can't be on me.
Uncle Dikembe.
There you go.
Just to make it general. Just to make it general.
But yeah,
Uncle
man.
Dikembe, man.
No, I think you put it perfectly. Hurt people, right? And there's a reason for that initial hurt, and it's often rooted in systems. It's often rooted in colonialism. It's rooted in history. So we need to educate ourselves. And I feel like we could end damn near every segment of this podcast with that. Like, continue to educate, continue to love, continue to reflect on your own mental health and that of those around you. Because while hurt people are hurt people, it's still up to each and every one of us to like care for our own mental health, support the mental health and just the general health and the emotional health of the people around us. And so make sure that you're on that. Make sure that you're on that with your peoples, man. How are you, man? Are you good? Are you good, bro? Like, seriously? Even as I try and bring a little bit more levity to it, like, are you straight?
I'm good, Miles. I'm very good. And the reason why I'm hopeful, and this is something that this was a conversation I was excited to have with you, right? Is demystifying the complexity of putting together the infrastructure that's aimed at helping people, right? Like, we run a foundation up, and this is the number that I just got in. We fed 1.67 million mouths this 2021. That's 1.67 million.
That's a lot of foods. That's a lot of bread.
It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. That's 1.67 million, 2021 alone. The goal is 10. We getting there. We getting there. All to say that what we've put together to create something that can do that is not something that is out of reach for people to be able to do. I just wanted to demystify that, because I'm seeing so much intent that people have, and a big want to do good, and that's beautiful. And that is the future that I believe in. That's the future that I participate in. That's the future that I endorse. And with helping people, the scale in which you can help people is only differentiated by your resources or the organization that you put behind what it is you want to help people with. And in doing that, I just don't want it to ever be like, one thing I hated when we're starting like these apps, right, and these companies, whatever, is that there was a lot of, it seemed so complicated. It always seems so you feel me?
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. And it's supposed to seem complicated, right? You're not supposed to want to be civically engaged, because that's for other people. At the most, we show up at the ballot box, but that's not how it should be. We should be getting together and discussing our community and what we want and how to make it better. And the role that I see for myself in that is trying to translate those discussions into demands, and bringing those demands to the dough of whoever need to give us mo. You know what I mean? But I love doing that. This podcast, despite the range of topics that we try to cover, to me is for sure a way that I try and build community, that I try and work through difficult issues that I see in the world. And that's what it starts with. Find the people around you that care about the things that you care about and do some.
Yeah, definitely. And it's that simple, man. And that's just what I wanted to end on with regards to just that topic. Is just love is the champion of this story that happened, right? And community is the true story that we're looking at. We've been through something terrible, but what is trumping that is the love and community and support that we're all pulling in together, man. And that's absolutely beautiful. That's always something that brings me some joy as a man that is courted, Miles, by other countries all the time. You know, the need to leave is always high. But when I see that, it gives me hope.
Hashtag gorgeous tourist. That's right.
Oh man, come on, I got on the fitted.
Love is the answer. Is the answer.
Love, love is the answer, man. Love is the answer. Listen, there's other things that I know we wanted to talk about. Where you taking me?
I think we can be brief in discussing. I think it ties into the previous topic, right? And if you can't tell us the audience, I think the emotionality and the importance of the stories has kind of trumped the typical structure of the podcast. So if you're missing the drops, don't worry. We're going to incorporate those correctly. You know what I'm saying? This is a work in progress, but I just wanted to briefly touch on overdoses in the US, man. It's like it's getting crazy, man. So, we were just talking about mental health and taking care of yourself and taking care of your peoples. And I don't want to harp on this too much, man. I just want to acknowledge it. People are going through it, man. 93,000 people overdosed on opioids in the US in the past year, man. This is according to the
Wow.
Washington Post. And you know, it's it's understandable. People are, like I said, quarantine has taken a heavy toll. The uncertainty of the pandemic, people losing their jobs, people losing loved ones, people having to stay in the crib, right? So we're seeing people resort to these drugs, man, and and I just think it's important for us to acknowledge that and to be informed, right? So if you don't know what Narcan is, it's a nasal spray that you use to revive somebody who's having an overdose on opioids. And I just think it's something that we all need to know what it is. It needs to be readily available in Walmart, Walgreens, and I'm going to start carrying some around, not because I'm expecting to have to revive to somebody, but because if 93,000 people have died of drug overdoses in the past year, think of how many of those people could have been saved if somebody around them had some Narcan. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if you or somebody is struggling with drugs, you know what I'm saying, there are definitely ways to get help here in the United States. The substance use and national helpline is 1-800-662 help, which is 4357. If y'all like me, that help does not help. I don't know how to do the letters on the phone anymore. I
Oh
forgot that
man.
knowledge in 1998. It's 1-800-662-4357. All right, to locate a nearby treatment facility. You know what I mean? Just be aware and take care of your peoples, man. That's really what I wanted to say on that, man. If you got anything.
I mean, look, we were in college when 2010 to 2015 or 2000, let's say 2010 to 2016. And so I feel like we were right there at the time where the opioid crisis was just shooting off. Like I think we were where we are, that intersection period where it went from an opioid crisis into like it is children are doing it, you know, and until it was like a children's exercise.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's been wild to just kind of see that change and evolution. It's been crazy to witness that. Uh, Frankly, as a black man, when the opioid crisis has been affecting uh disproportionately white people, right? And just to see the difference that's been treated in the media versus the crack epidemic, how little focus there is on the drug dealers of opioids, mainly because a lot of them happen to be pharmaceutical companies and they're in the pockets of government, which we talked a little bit about before, and that's a whole mess, as y'all know. So that's interesting to observe, but I think what's important is to acknowledge in this situation is keeping the same energy, bro. I wouldn't want for there to be this over criminalization of people who are experiencing opioid addiction and substance abuse, right? I would want for it to be treated as a medical issue. I would want for there to be access to treatment and facilities. And we need to keep that same energy when it's Black and brown people that are experiencing these type of crises as well. So we're lifting up, like, we're lifting up love and healing for anybody who's addicted to anything, right? We're
Yeah.
lifting up balance. We're lifting up the support system. And if you're hearing this and you are struggling with drugs or alcohol abuse, then we are with you. You're not alone. You know what I'm saying? Feel free to reach out to the All the Way Live podcast. You know what I mean? If you just want to leave a comment or say something or whatever, like, this is an open space. This is a community. This is more than us just talking shit about these issues. Like, people are really going through it. We understand that. And so, yeah, we here live.
Live. Hey, man, I think this might be a good place for us to be able to take a break and introduce again artist of residency this week. Another showing by Cooler Than Black emojis. You know what I'm saying? This is the segment where if you're a sponsor, you'd be giving us some cash. So we want to make sure that sponsors,
Fork it over.
this is bring it through. But more importantly, man, who's sponsoring this particular show is the Mandula Foundation, man. Can you tell people about our particular sponsor this week?
Of course, man. Of course, man. The Mandula Foundation is an organization that is headquartered in South Africa. We are also making moves here in Chicago, and our focus is helping people. Our focus is bringing people resources, giving people access to the basic necessities and the educational necessities, be that technology, be that curriculum. We're creating opportunities in these spaces. So shout out to Mandula Foundation. Shout out to you, Zoe. Shout out to all of the folks that they do the work. You know, in time for Chills, P, Luvo, Mo. You know what I mean? It's a family affair over here. And so we appreciate the opportunity that we've given ourselves to speak about the Mandula Foundation and to support Cooler Than Black emojis. If you have some art, if you do something dope, if you would like a spotlight segment, hit us up. We would love to put your content here, lift up the people in our community first and foremost. But also, if you are a company or an organization and you want to be the first, right, to jump in, get into the forefront of two young brothers that are building something up that's going to be huge, man. If you believe in love, if you believe in empathy, if you believe
Yes,
that
sir.
vulnerable are powerful, and the most gangster thing you can do is serve, invest in this. Get correct. All the Way Live. One time.
Are we live?
Yo,
Wow.
we bike.
Wow. Pop Smoke recommended and review. You know what it is. The All the Way Live boys, man. The people like this, so we got to give it to them.
Yeah. Sock it to you. Yo. First and foremost, man, rest in peace to Pop Smoke, man. Can't go nowhere without that, man. I guess let's start with how you felt about this second posthumous album, because you were telling me that to check it out, that we were going to review it. Were you expecting a lot from it? Was there a reason for that?
I really enjoyed the last Pop Smoke album. So I wouldn't call myself the biggest Pop Smoke fan, but I have enjoyed him since I heard him. Right. And so off of the last album, Shoot for the Stars, that was super dope. I liked a lot of that. And to me, that would be a better album than this, just because the standouts on that album were so much stronger than this one. But that being said, for this to be for two posthumous albums back to back that are this strong, I think says a lot, because this is I'm hearing the internet say they hate it more than I do, but I enjoyed it. What did you think?
Wow. First of all, I didn't know that the consensus online was that people don't like it. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first one, I thought, to your point, yeah, I thought the standout tracks on it were really strong. The ones with Fabio, the ones with Drake, the ones with Lil Baby. Yeah, there's some really good tracks on that first posthumous album. And I think the overall kind of sentiment is that like posthumous albums are not often really that good. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
a lot of times we're just left really wanting more from an artist, and there's a lot of clamor for a posthumous album, but rarely are they a true representation of the artist and their work. And
Yeah.
the first one I thought was a really good example of where Pop was when he passed in terms of like the features that he was after this like meteoric rise to like like stardom, right? He was among the all of those people that he had featured on the album. um and I think without seeing the track list, when I heard that there was a second posthumous album coming out, again to your point, for there to be two that are really good seemed a little bit unlikely, so I didn't
Mm.
necessarily rush to it, but I ended up actually liking this one more than the first one. I think the first
Yeah.
one, like I said, was a representation of where he was at almost thoroughly throughout the entire album, is that kind of New York drill sound. Even the tracks that are a little bit more down tempo, for the ladies, for the radio, still kind of have that essence. And I feel like he strayed away more from that here. And his ability to do that showed to me that like even more versatility, even more of like, man, this guy could have made some amazing records, all different types
Mm.
of records, So I really enjoyed this project. Another Mom, right, opens with the intro
Yeah.
with his mom speaking on him, and I love that rappers are bigging up their moms, bro. Like I can't get enough of that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
um and it's long overdue in terms of what hip hop, the direction hip hop needs to go in, uh growing up and acknowledging and being more complex and more nuanced in how it speaks about women, right? And so yeah, man, I really dug this, so I'm surprised that people didn't like it. What they saying?
I mean, a lot to what you're saying. Actually, interestingly, when you're saying that you enjoy the features of it, a lot of people are saying, notably, Pop Smoke had said that he's not a big feature heavy artist, and so a lot of the original DJs that were part of the inner Pop Smoke crew have distanced themselves from it. I think the mother might have distanced herself from it too,
Mm,
just saying that it would not be in the particular taste that Pop would have wanted it in. And
mm,
also some people just saying there's a rather generic usage of his of the songs are very generic, and that's kind of what the consensus has been. But what I would say, I enjoyed the opening track, like you said, but that is one of the weaker Pusha T verses that I've heard in a very long time. Very, because I'm a huge Pusha fan, and so when I saw that and I heard the Ye drums, because Ye bodied those drums, those are some spectacular Ye. That first track, some spectacular Ye beats right there. But the Pusha verse, I was hoping for more. That was for me the most disappointing thing on the album.
mm, mm. Wow. Yeah, a lot of points. Interesting that his mom's voice is on the record, but she has distanced herself from the album. Really interesting. That's kind of makes me
Listen,
feel differently about
before I talk before I talk wrong, let me check that and validate it.
that.
But
Cool,
you keep going, I'm gonna
cool.
validate it.
Yeah. I think the other thing, I mean, with me, posthumous albums, I think the kind of understanding is that the artist didn't get to finish it. So in order to put together something that sounds cohesive yeah, you do have to kind of fill a lot of that airtime with other artists, extended hooks, choruses. They're finishing it. All these other artists are finishing it. And if his camp feels like that's something that's not something that he would have wanted, then yeah, for sure that does make me look at the project differently. I will say though that initially, without that knowledge, uh ironically, I was kind of like a year later, right? I would want them to come back and still for this to still have the support of major artists to be willing to be on this Pop Smoke project, mostly
Yeah.
because everybody has had a Pop Smoke track on their album for the past year and a half. Everybody's
Yes.
track 16, 17 is a New York drill beat with a whole bunch of Pop Smoke-ish ad-libs. So if the industry would have left him hanging and not been willing to collaborate to put something together, I would have felt a way about that. But knowing that that's maybe not something that he wanted, I think definitely it should be held in over whatever I thought was cool about that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
But
But I still think it's good music. I think the Pusha track you're talking about, Tell the Vision, track 3
mhm,
with Kanye.
mhm.
Yeah. More
Yeah.
time. I thought like his the first song after his mom's intro, fire.
Uh-huh.
I liked About a Million with 21 Savage. I'm a big fan of Busy
That was
Banks,
dope.
so 30 is a highlight for me. But I also liked later on in the album when it just got different. I liked What's Cracking, but I also
Different.
I liked 8 Ball. I liked Spoiled. I'm not sure which one of those is the kind of like 80s kind of almost disco-ish joint, but I like that. And I'm like, man, again, this guy could have made some incredible different sounding music. I'll compare it to Burden of Proof by Benny the Butcher, which wasn't necessarily my favorite album by Benny, but just his ability to make different types of music than what we'd heard from him before, like just shows me that this guy can make cinematic music, grimy music, pop music, records for the club, records for the radio, records for females, like, and that versatility and creativity is something that I think just needs to be appreciated. Even if, yeah, we may not support this album fully if it doesn't have the blessings of his people now.
Yeah, yeah, and to totally counter what I said, his mother actually loves this album. Loves the album the most.
Okay,
Gotta
gotcha,
clarify that.
gotcha.
But
Didn't like the
his
previous
original
album, maybe.
producer.
What's up?
Listen, I'm. Oh damn, man, this connection is. God damn, this connection's killing me. How am I coming through? How am I
No,
sounding?
you're coming through all right. You're coming through all right.
Oh, okay, because the connection's been kind of shit. I don't know if you can tell.
I've just been hearing like static at the end of talking, but I haven't been. The connection hasn't been too bad this side.
Yeah, the delay's been the delay's been palpable on this side, but it's still going. It's still going. All right. Where was we?
Uh, did the highlights for the Pop Smoke album. Found out that his mom does support this album, so yeah, that's what's up. And yeah, it definitely
Yeah.
that makes sense to me in hearing it. Yeah, I would be super surprised that she wouldn't. I felt like her message at the beginning kind of was carried throughout the album. So dope. I would actually
Yeah.
give this 4 out of 5 mics. I will return to this album and put it in playlists, and I'm glad we got more Pop Smoke.
Yeah. The mathematician in me wants to say 3.58, but I know I can't do that, so I'll have to give it 3.5 and sit there on that shelf, man. I can't get past the Makami album. That is still to me. That's the album that I keep running back to.
That's really interesting. I'm because like I've listened to that album a few times, and I think it's really good, but I think yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do a Burden of Proof, not Burden of Proof. The Plugs I Met Too, and Mac Hami. What's the name of that album?
Pray for Paris.
Pray for Haiti. Pray for Haiti.
Pray for Haiti.
We'll have to do.
I was even gonna ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was even gonna ask you which one you find better, the Stove God Cooks, Reasonable Drought, or the Pray for Haiti, because those are very comparable to me. I think.
Stove God, it's easy. You really like that Mac Hami, huh?
It's not just me. It's
I know
not just me.
I know it's not just you, but I think the Stove God is a lot more in like I don't know. It's if you're trying to compare albums that are like out there and take risks with sounds, I gotta go with Stove God. I don't know. We'll have to do that. We'll have to sit down and kind of go through that Mac Hami album because I love it, but I don't see it as number one necessarily.
I put it would be in contention for album of the year for me this year. It would have to be. I appreciate it more than the J. Cole album. I listened to it more than that. I could say that much.
Is it better than the Tyler the Creator album?
To me, yes.
I got that. I got you.
But is Tyler is the Tyler album is it's a masterclass, right? It's clinical in its approach to music making. Clearly, Tyler the Creator knows how to make a wide array of music, and his intent is to be able to flex that on that album. He wants to show I can make R&B, I can make hip hop, I can make this hard, whatever you like, I know how to make it, and he proves that point. This is just like watching street ball and just watching someone do some stuff that I just haven't seen in a while, but I thoroughly appreciate. It feels to me like when we first heard, what's the first Benny the Butcher album? When we first heard the first Benny, that's what this album feels like to me.
Yeah, I got that. And yeah, maybe there is just something to that, because you really liked Tana Talk 3. And I was like, not that it wasn't amazing, but not that it was like his best work. And so yeah, maybe there's just a different lens that you're hearing it through, and I appreciate your ability to appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, then question to you then. What Benny album would you say then is the best? If you don't find Tana Talk to be, if you find it to be meh.
I didn't find. Oh no! Don't do that. Don't do that.
I'm trying to get a headline. Miles thinks Tana Talk 3 is meh. Episode 40.
Not at all. Not at all. I gotta go with. I mean, my favorite is the Plugs I Met too, but I think Tana Talk has more standouts for me, but it's not the easiest to just run. Plugs I Met too, I think I can just run for days.
I would even say Tana Talk 3. Actually, Hitler was Hermes 5 and Tana Talk 3 are what began this Griselda run. Sparked by yeah, there you go.
West Side Gun, baby. Yeah, man. Griselda is, if y'all cannot tell, we are big Griselda fans. Big Griselda energy up in y'all.
Yeah, that's worldwide. That's worldwide.
Yes, sir.
That's absolutely worldwide. Do you want to get into Space Jam, or what are you saying?
Listen, man, I watched this movie with a surgicality that is unknown to man. And this guy didn't even check it out, man. I'm hurt.
I tried to bring myself to it.
I'm hurt.
I can do it. I can do it with you. I can do it. I'll watch it today. Don't push me. I'll do it.
Don't trip. It's not necessary. I was the first Space Jam's biggest fan. I had Space Jams, just so y'all know how real it is, right? No cap. All sorts of orange circle tune basketball shits on my onesies. I dug it. Like, had the soundtrack. Yeah. Everybody, I ain't gonna sing it. But that soundtrack is got.
You're about to start singing R. Kelly. That's what you're about to do. You're about to start singing R. Kelly.
There's so much on that. There's so much on that soundtrack. It's got like a New Jack Swing feel to it. There's a lot on that soundtrack that I dig. Just Welcome to the Jam is like an amazing. Come on and slam. So you got me singing. And welcome to the jam. It goes hard, bro. That goes in.
That's why you're the perfect person to review this. That's why I didn't even review it. I was like, listen, if there's anybody that I know will appreciate Space Jam 2, is you.
Yeah. And I think Space Jam 2 was it was a fun movie. It was the best it could have been because they were determined to do it. You know what I mean? They decided they were going to do it. They decided that LeBron was going to have a Space Jam, and they made it. And I think they made it. It's a kid's movie, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's impossible to judge it against the original Space Jam because that's like that's just a phenomena, right? Like Michael Jordan personality, the animation at the time the way that they were able to balance those out, the adult humor versus like kid humor, and just the overwhelming like love of Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny at that time, right? Like
Mm,
I love
mm.
LeBron. If y'all don't know what LeBron's I Promise School is, y'all need to look that up because LeBron is outside of basketball one of like the athletes that's making major moves to like do
Major.
things radical for his community. So look up the I Promise School in Akron. But that being said, there just isn't the same love for LeBron that there was for Michael Jordan in the 90s.
Mm.
And there wasn't, and there's not, and I'm also a person that loved Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny was my favorite cartoon character, bro. Like, there's
Mm.
not the same love at all for Bugs Bunny in this day and age, right? And so
Yeah.
when the original movie is what it is because you made a movie about two of the most loved figures by adults and by kids in the world and were able to marry
Yeah.
those two things, to try and do a sequel when people just don't care about LeBron the way they cared about Mike and certainly don't care about
Don't
Bugs
care
Bunny and the
about
Looney
Bugs
Tunes.
Bunny. Yeah. Nobody cares about Bugs Bunny, bro.
Yeah, for sure. And that's low-key hard for me to hear, but that's really real, right? Like nobody cares about Bugs Bunny anymore. And so
Baby Shark is kicking Bugs Bunny's ass any
there
day
you
of the
go.
week.
There you go. And but for them to steamroll forward and make this movie, they made it as palatable as that movie can be, which doesn't make it good. Looks like the one of the lines from the trailer is Daffy Duck says, "I look expensive." The whole movie looks expensive. Looks like they decided to focus the movie on tech. So the LeBron's kid essentially plays video games. Spoiler alert, I guess. And they decided to base the movie around his video game. And so in addition to the cartoons, there's this entire tech video game world on top of it, right? Which to me is a it's like a lazy substitute for actually modernizing it. Rather than placing real modern issues into the movie, you just add the element of tech that wasn't there in the 90s and you're like, now it's 2021, right? And like I just didn't feel like that hit. The last kind of the big detractor from the movie is that for some reason Warner Bros was like, we have to show all of the stuff that we have. So in the original movie, everybody
What do you mean?
in the original movie, Space Jam was between like the Looney Tunes and like this one little group of like Looney Tune aliens. But in this movie, it's based around the evil guy is the algorithm, right? So he's like the algorithm for ESPN that's giving LeBron suggestions, voiced by Don Cheadle. So Don Cheadle is the algorithm, live action
I love
person,
that for Don Cheadle.
but he should have been a cartoon. He should have been a cartoon. The bad person who lives in the animated world should be animated, but he was just a regular guy, even though he's supposed to be the algorithm. So
it's like the Matrix.
Exactly. And here you go, right? See, now we're getting into what Warner Bros. Dumped on us with this movie was all of its own properties. So instead of it just involving this weird algorithm guy, LeBron, and the Looney Tunes, Warner Brothers took it upon themselves to make it the Warnerverse. And now they're showing the Matrix, Harry Potter world, freaking everything.
It's a rollout.
It's everything that
It's a rollout. It's a rollout.
It's everything that they own. So they're showing off their different properties. King Kong, like it's just like who what
How do they show the Matrix outside of Don Cheadle being Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, exactly. They have a Matrix world, and like when LeBron is falling to the Looney Tunes world, he like falls past like the Matrix world and stuff. They have Mr. Smith like standing behind Don Cheadle, like as Don Cheadle's coaching. He's like all the villains from all of these movies are behind Don Cheadle. So Don Cheadle, there's like a fake, but they didn't get the real actor who plays Mr. Smith. So it's just a dude in a black suit that's supposed to be Mr. Smith that's standing behind him.
That's so lazy.
Yeah.
That's so lazy, man. That's my issue with some with these redone movies, these sequels, right? I have no issue with it. I have no issue with it, but it always lack. They never take the approach that could actually make the movie valuable. You know, I saw them try to do it with the Cruella de Vil movie, right? Where they tried to add some edge to it, and cool, that would be. Listen, man, I got a
This
lot of
guy
women in my
watched
life.
Cruella, but couldn't bring himself to watch Space Jam 2. I just want to know the lines are drawn in weird ways. That's all I'm saying.
No, this is the difference is that I didn't choose that movie. I just so happened to be there as it was being watched, and therefore I watched it. I didn't turn it on.
Gotcha.
But that being said, like, you know, there's it's lazy. Like you're saying, falls through the matrix. Well, come on, man. LeBron, you should have taken a red pill or blue pill. You know what I'm saying? That would have been cool.
And so long story short, in the first original Space Jam, Michael Jordan never became a cartoon. He was just himself interacting with all the cartoon characters. They made a LeBron a cartoon just to like go on this weird detour. They made Bugs Bunny like weirdly emotional and sad. Like all the other Looney Tunes left him to go hang out on all the other worlds. So they had to go pick them up from the other worlds. But Bugs Bunny was like the sad last person in Looney Tune land. Man, it was just like it was all over the place. And that especially doesn't work. It doesn't work to see Bugs Bunny sad if
No one cares about Bugs Bunny.
no one cares about Bugs Bunny. And so it was I've said everything that's wrong with the movie. And now I will say that if you're watching with your little kid brain, it looks great, lots of colors, cool basketball, video games, cool. It's cotton candy. Whereas the first movie was like this weird, unexpected, satisfying cultural moment. This is just a fluff money grab, but it's pretty to look at, right? So it's if you have kids and they like the first Space Jam, like absolutely, this is great for them. Great that LeBron has an opportunity. Not sure why his real kids and real family weren't in it, but whatever. And it was
Do you think
meh.
do you think like the PC culture of today made it very difficult for them to even entertain the idea of creating a movie that, I mean, one of the big things that we're speaking about is that um the 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 sexy bunny from the first movie now was not so sexy anymore. Not Jojo Rabbit. What's her name?
Lola Bunny. No, I don't think that mattered. When you actually Lola Bunny was when they go to pick up Lola Bunny, she's with Superman and Wonder Woman and all them, and she's like becoming a Wonder Woman Amazon, and that's pretty cool. Like it's cool to see her like as that. And Lola Bunny doesn't have to be sexy to be interesting, right? She's like a badass, and she doesn't have to be sexualized to be sexy, right? Like the funny part about like them sexualizing Lola Bunny is like she's not just sexy because she looks sexy. She's sexy because she's confident and like smart and like has funny like quips and stuff like that. So like taking the sexy out of the bunny is like it just shows that people's minds are in a weird place and probably doth protest too much. But I think the movie can still be very good without all those raunchy jokes. I think the movie can be like, yeah, I don't think that's not on my list of things that held this movie back. The ability to push the line with adult humor was not one of them.
Yeah, people were really up in arms about that. That's one of those headlines when you see and you're just like, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, just like
no, I'm good. I don't care.
yeah, your mind must be so in such a weird place that you care about this.
That's odd. That's odd.
People
But
are
yo,
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, listen, I thoroughly enjoyed your review of Space Jam. I kind of wanted to tune in for giving you another crappy animated movie to watch again and just hear you rant on it. Miles rants on Space Jam.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and next week I will do I don't know one of those terrible DC movies that comes out on my Netflix all the time.
All of them.
But yo, speaking of superhero shit, Marvel and people like being up in arms. People were up in arms at the Loki show because he apparently meets another version of himself and falls in love with himself. And they do things, apparently.
But the only reason I keep quiet is because we know somebody that we described if they ever had to come
I didn't
into
even
a
think
similar
of that.
predicament. That's what I thought you would
I didn't
see.
even
When
think of
we
that.
said, listen, listen, if X person ever met themselves, they would fall in love with themselves.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
That's where I thought you were going with it. But
Oh
that being
no,
said, man.
they did that on Logan. People were like, "What is this? Should we be upset about this?" And I just thought that was funny, similar to the Lola Bunny thing. It's like, why? If you're not sure, then probably just don't worry too much about it. It's a Marvel show. Forget it. That's funny.
If you met yourself, how would you feel about yourself?
I couldn't hang out around another version of me. I'm too hedonistic. So me and myself would just like find ways to make life easier for both of us. And we would just veg out all the time.
What does hedonistic mean?
It means you like are very susceptible to finding comfort in life's pleasures. So I think two of me would just find all the ways to take shortcuts in life so that we could do it would be like The Prestige, but all to just like watch like crime movies in order and shit like that. So instead of like creating this amazing thing, one of me would be going out and doing all the chores while the other one is like, yeah, I don't know, just figuring out which of the Benny the Butcher albums is the best. It'd be, and then one of us gets mad. That never works out. It'll never work out.
You are describing our entire living situation the time I was in Chicago. That's what you're describing. That is entirely what you're describing. One of us does the chores.
Hey man, it works. It works.
And that's why this show works. That's why this show works, ladies and gentlemen. That's the sauce behind it.
That's right. That's right. Because at least you pick a different Benny the Butcher album, that Mac Hobby. which is that's the hilarious part, is that we think it's so different. Like, yo, nah, this grimy East Buffalo hip hop versus this East grimy Buffalo hip hop. Nigga, you crazy. You're crazy.
That's what the people want to see, man. And we give it to them. And you know why we give it to them, Mr. Miles? Is because we definitely know. We know.
Oh, yeah, man. We know. We know, man. It's inescapable, man. Y'all have so many options when it comes to choosing a podcast. The fact that you find yourself here listening to Chestnut and Hazelnut Tones, that's a gift to us, man. We are so grateful that you have joined us for this celebration of celebrating, the celebration of life, the celebration of how good it feels to be Black. Don't it feel good this way?
Favorite thing.
Yes, and we hope it feels good to be you. You know what I'm saying? If you're going through it, if you need help, love, support, then know that this space is brings you that, and that we are here for you. We love you. We appreciate you. Eat something delicious. Hug somebody you love. Peace, water, like that. We gone.